Welcome to the Pages of Light podcast, your destination for discussions of popular fantasy and science fiction novels from a Christian worldview. My name is Tyler, aka Varum, and with me, as always, is Gabriel, aka the Quarantine Quartermaster. Welcome back to the podcast, Gabe. How you doing? This is officially the last episode of 2022. How do you feel about that?
We made it. Not quite a full year because of the hiatus, but
Yes.
we've done a lot of episodes.
We have.
That's not. I think that's awesome, and here we are on the cusp of 2023, which is just a day away.
Yep.
At the time this episode drops, and we have a whole next year. Well, we don't have a full year, but we have a lot of content lined up for next year. Like, we're in a pretty good spot, and we're in through your Christmas slog at church with how many Christmas things did you have to work?
So I had to work 7, I think. But we had a total of 13 services at the main campus, and then we have 2 other campuses in different locations, and they each had 2. So total of 17 services across the whole church. So
Yep, that's a lot. So
oh yeah, lots of services.
I'm sure you're glad to be done with that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the new year and all that will bring. And as you mentioned, we have a lot of content planned, which we will jump into in just a second here. So as always, you can follow Pages of Light on our website, pagesoflight.com, and you can also check us out on all of our social platforms. Go to the YouTube channel and subscribe so you can check out the video version for whenever we do fun things, like maybe Gabe has a costume on for Halloween, or Gabe is maybe showing off a newly 3D printed item or something like that. So
you guys want to see the Hollow Knight?
Oh yeah, okay. So we got a new print here.
This went out as Christmas gifts. I 3D printed Hollow Knight because my niece and nephews are into the game, and Silk Song is supposed to be released in 2023, which is the sequel to Hollow Knight. And I am going to be 3D printing some of the Hornet character when I have a chance. So, yep.
Cool.
Looking forward to some more 3D printing.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing about Hollow Knight, the game?
I just love a game that requires the person to be very skillful. Like, you have to time things just right. Like, they make puzzles for you to solve with your different abilities. Like, you have to wall slide into a dash, into a double jump to like make it through like an area, and
Right.
And it was just such a big game. And I'm like, I finished the game with 77%, which is like a C, but it also took me like 40 hours to like complete the game. And like, I feel, people speed run it in like 27 minutes. So like, I definitely feel like I, it's around half an hour that they speed run it in. So definitely feel a little dumb, but I mean, speed running is definitely a skill that takes over time.
Right.
So
You're not trying to enjoy the
game
game when you speed run.
Yeah, or you are, and you've already spent the time learning the whole map and the best sequence of things. But I just liked how big and sprawling the world is. I like how like the artwork looks great. Vivian and I, that's my daughter, we listened to the theme music on the drive home, and she's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's the Soul Sanctum, or the Green Path, or the Decisive Fight." And she loves hearing all the music and stuff. So yeah, it's just fun for our family.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to whenever my son Jack is old enough to like converse, and we could talk about the music that we're listening to, or whatever it is. That's one thing I'm looking forward to, whenever he's able to actually have like some semblance of a conversation with me. So yeah, that'll be fun in the next few years here.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, so I think the first thing I have up on this podcast, this is like a New Year's kind of podcast. So we're going to talk about 2022, some of our favorite things that we enjoyed this year from the podcast. perspective, and then we'll talk about what we're planning to do in 2023. So we have a good chunk of the year already mapped out for all the different books that we're going to be reading. And then at the end, we'll take a look at some just like 2023, like personal goals, like things we want to accomplish just as individuals. It could be related to the podcast or just something personal in our lives that we want to try to focus on for this year. So almost like a New Year's resolution, even though, I don't know, New Year's resolutions are kind of like things that you start in January and then they die by February. So I don't know. I feel like I've never had any success with actually starting a New Year's resolution and then having it carry out through the entire year, and something that I feel like I actually accomplished. So I don't know, maybe I need to take a new strategy for approaching New Year's resolutions or something. Maybe I'm just maybe I'm not doing it correctly. But before we jump in, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't do New Year's resolutions. I just feel like life is kind of like in a constant progression, and when I decide to do something, I do it. What's funny about me specifically is like I can be so good at like a routine, and then like if something gets derailed, it's just like out of my life. Like,
oh yeah,
I can be so committed to it, and they just like do it day in, day out for like months, and then just one day it just like plop, just drops right off.
Yeah.
And my wife calls me out on that a lot, so I probably deserve it. But yeah, it's really funny how you can be so dedicated to something. But yeah, usually I like if I decide to do like a life change, like I'm pretty good at like not waiting for New Year's. I just kind of like decide I'm gonna do it, and then the easier it is to like integrate into my daily schedule, the longer it's gonna stick around.
It's true. You can't make large sweeping changes and expect them to stick. You got to make small incremental changes so that they're easier to keep up on a consistent basis, and then you can make progress. So I know intellectually how to do it. It's just in practice, I always seems like I fail. So
yeah, I think that's a lot of people's problems, myself included.
Yeah. So maybe 2023 will be the year where we don't fail.
Make the magic happen.
That's right. Maybe we'll see. Cool. All right. Before we jump into some podcast stuff, I just want to talk just 1 second about like New Year's traditions. Like, do you have anything fun that your family would do? My family would always, like, we would just get together around the TV because we're gonna watch, you know, who was the guy that did the New Year's show? Bob Barker. I feel like that's the right name. I don't remember the person's name.
Bob Barker is like, isn't he like The Price is Right or something?
Maybe he is. Yeah. I don't know what the guy's name is. Who always did the New Year's show. And then Ryan Seacrest took over for him after he...
I was going to say Ryan Seacrest. Like, that name came to mind.
No, okay, no. It's
like,
Dick Clark. Dick Clark, that's who it is. Dick Clark's New Year's Eve service, New Year's Eve program or whatever. So we would watch that, and then the ball drop and all that kind of stuff. And we'd always have like appetizers and like hors d'oeuvres. We'd have the, you know, like the little mini hot dogs in a blanket, like the little small ones with the ketchups and all those things. We'd have like
love those.
That's right. We get some wings. We get some like little wrapped up taco type thingies. So we'd have all sorts of little hors d'oeuvres or, you know, whatever, like stuff like that are fun to kind of eat with your just like small finger foods. So that's what we would do. Did you have anything that you would do or you want to maybe start doing for New Year's traditions?
Yeah, I'd like to start coming to your New Year's so I can eat these finger foods and watch the ball drop.
So these are things that we did as kids. These are not things that we do now. So we'll have to start new traditions.
Yeah, no, not really. No real tradition as kids. It was always like try and hang out with your friends on New Year's and see the ball drop. Like,
right.
The only consistent thing is like the ball would drop. We didn't have the hot dogs and the blankets, but I want them, so just make an extra batch for the quarantine quartermaster.
Maybe we'll have to start I don't know. Are we considered young adults still? a
Ooh.
young adult New Year's Eve party. We used to go to those.
I'm basically 40, so I don't think I fit into young adult anymore. Maybe you do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 30, so I feel like I'm still. I guess technically I would be. I don't know. I feel like once you're in your 30s, you're not really a young adult anymore. I just feel like, especially once you have kids, you don't really. It's just like a different. It's just like a different crowd. It's like a different lifestyle. Like once you get married and have kids, like you're just like in a completely different phase of life, and the 25-year-old single person who's just out of college, like they're living a completely different way than the way I'm living. So I think that's just, I would consider myself not a young adult anymore. I will self-select out.
You can still, you can still attend.
Yes, that's true.
And go, but you're probably out of it. Like, life changes when you have a family.
Right. Cool. If you guys have New Year's traditions or something fun, maybe Gabe can steal some of your ideas that you can put in the comments.
Please. I love being a thief of good things. It's all good.
Awesome. All right. So let's jump into some of our 2022. We're calling this like 2022 Wrapped in as an homage to Spotify's 2022 Wrapped with all of your music. Something they put out every year, which is always fun to listen to. So we're going to do favorite book that we read for the podcast. We're going to do favorite book that we read that was not on the podcast. And then we're going to do favorite episode that we got to record on the podcast. So starting off, my favorite book that we read for the podcast, I think, was The Great Hunt, which is book 2 of The Wheel of Time. That was at the very beginning of the year, if I'm not mistaken. And
it might have been our earliest episode this year.
Yeah. I think I just really enjoyed that book. I enjoyed the the plot structure of them kind of on this hunt, of course, which is why it's called The Great Hunt, looking for the horn of Valir. And there were some really good scenes in there. I remember that, especially that scene where they're going through, is it through the ways they're going through? And Rand has all those visions of his like previous lives or future lives or things that could have been or maybe were in the past. And that really cool sequence where there's like the flicker kind of scene. I remember reading that.
I remember you reading that. Yeah, reading that on the podcast. That gave me chills. I was like, ooh, that's such good writing right there.
But so that passage is really great, and it's a great book. And so that was probably my favorite book that we've read on the podcast this year. So there you go. Wheel of Time is great in general. Well, what is yours?
So for me, it's The Ring of Solomon. I love that. I feel like the trilogy, like the Bartimaeus trilogy, followed by The Ring of Solomon, is just like a not well known book series, and I'm glad that I just love Bartimaeus and his panache and his bungling sort of ways, but he's also very intelligent, but he goofs things up, and then he outsmarts all of Solomon's guards and finds his way up into the tower and sees through the illusions and figures things out. And I'm glad I got to introduce you to it. I just love Bartimaeus as a character, and I enjoy reading Jonathan Stroud's books. And again, if I could speak as eloquently as he writes, I probably could be pretty happy with that. So he definitely pushes my boundary of vocabulary.
I enjoyed that book. It was a good break from a lot of the big epic fantasies that we read. It was more of a focused story, and it was just a one-off, so there wasn't necessarily any. Although there is the original series, there's no direct sequel to it, so it's just kind of a one-off story, which is it was fun to read. I agree. So next we have a favorite non-podcast book. So one of the books that I read this year that I read to my son Jack, as we read a chapter or so ish of a book, before bed every night. So, and the first book we read is The Hobbit, because I love the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien. So, of course, the first book that I read, besides like normal kids' books, board books, or whatever stuff like that, like the first actual book I'm gonna read to him is The Hobbit. So, it was just really fun for me to go back and read that book, because it's been a while since I've read it, and yeah, it was just really great to go back into that world again, and just to hear the travels of Bilbo and Gandalf and all the different dwarves, and all the situations they find themselves in, and how Bilbo helps them get out of all these different situations. And so I read the book to Jack, and then whenever I finished, for my birthday, I got the audiobook on CD read by Andy Serkis, who plays Gollum in the movies. So he read The Hobbit, and he read also the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So, and I got the audiobook for The Hobbit on CD, so I actually listened to it again with him as I was in the car. So that was fun. So I actually read it twice this year, once physically reading it and then once in audiobook. So yeah, that was definitely my favorite book that I guess reread this year, but it's been a while. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Vivian's at the age where she might understand it. She loves stories. She just wants to know the story of how the sink flooded. She's like, "Tell me the story, Dad. Tell me the story." She's always asking for, "Tell me the story." So maybe The Hobbit will be something that we get into. I think she might enjoy that. She definitely enjoys the strange and the fantastic.
Yeah.
So. My book that I chose for the non-podcast book is, I can't tell you guys how good this book is. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. So Chris Voss is a hostage negotiator, 25 years, international hostage negotiator. And he basically takes all the skills. Like, think about this. You have to negotiate with people from across the globe, different languages, working with people with different motivations, and like the learning that he did in those situations, and he brings it to you in a very palatable, like user-friendly guide on how to run negotiations. And believe it or not, working in the school that I work in, knowing hostage negotiation skills has come in handy every single day. That is just a reality. So I can't recommend this book enough. Never Split the Difference. It not only shows you how to I think it shows you how to empathize with people, and I love that he calls the person there's another book series Start With No or something, maybe that's it, and they describe the other person as the adversary, and that kind of sets up this they are the opponent and we are going to best them sort of mentality. And I like how Chris Voss frames it. He says the person that you're negotiating with is the counterpart. And so just that switch from the adversary to the counterpart, the idea is that you guys are trying to work towards a goal and build something that's new, not what person A thought, not what person B thought, but something synergistic that allows both people to get what they want. And it just has taught me how to listen more carefully, how to I've hated this part of my younger life where I knew the right course of action, but I just didn't know how to get other people to see it. And this book has really given me some skills on how to frame questions in a way that gets the counterpart thinking in the same direction that you are. And I feel like it does it because you do tackle with am I guiding a person or am I coercing a person into my viewpoint? And I feel like this book does a good job of framing, making it a neutral frame versus a adversary, I'm gonna get them, I'm gonna get my way. Right. And so just the skill set in that book is excellent. And I, if you are looking for a book on communication, and like, it even has like great implications in a marriage, like how to listen to your spouse effectively and how to communicate ideas better. There's just skills in that book that I use every single day. So that's my book of choice.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds really great. We'll put links to those books that we mentioned, and I'll also link the podcast episodes that we, for like The Great Hunt and The Ring of Solomon, that we mentioned in our favorite book that we read on the podcast. And so the next section we're going to be doing is favorite episode that we got to record. So this might be like our favorite. Maybe we had some good points, or we thought just the discussion was really good, or something like that. So the one I picked was the Crimson Campaign, which was our first. It wasn't the first recording. I think it was the second recording after we came back from our hiatus, which is my fault because well, it's not my fault, but I just didn't get back into the swing of things as quick as I thought I would. So, but yeah, that was one of the first recordings we did when we came back, and yeah, I just thought that was really good episodes. We got to talk about some interesting things, like especially the conversation we had at the end of that book about just revenge and how Tamis didn't get the revenge that he thought he was going to get, and just like the implications for that for his character, and all the stuff with Taniel and Capole and all her witch magic and stuff like that with her dolls and stuff was just interesting to talk about. So yeah, I think that was just a fun episode. And of course I'll link that episode in the description as well, so if you guys want to check those out. Did you have any particular episode that you enjoyed recording, or Ring of Solomon, of course, is probably fun for you to record, so.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I love it. I actually did not choose an episode, and I'm just going to say, like, I have a really bad memory. So, like,
that's fair.
I
do
like,
too.
I look back and I'm just like, what did we even talk about? Like, at one point in the conversation, I remember one like podcast conversation, you were like, oh, like, we'll go back and listen to our stuff, and you're like, how egotistical is that? I'm like, I literally will not remember what we discussed in the previous podcast. So like, I do want to go back and like refresh my memory. I just want to say that I think that like, after the Crimson Campaign, including the Crimson Campaign, well, maybe more after, I just like the way that our dynamic as co-host has changed. Our prep has changed, and I think it's leading us in a better direction. I feel more prepared to discuss the podcast. And I don't know if you, the listeners, have seen a difference, but these past few episodes that we've recorded, they've been a little bit more planned. Tyler and I have decided beforehand, instead of just doing things like spontaneously or extemporaneously, we're being a little bit more decisive on who's going to share which parts of the story, and then looking for themes and bringing in scripture. Tyler's been carrying the brunt of that, so just truth be told. But I just like the way that our episodes have been evolving and changing, and I think that we're going to get better at being co-hosts together. So I don't really have a specific episode that I've chosen, but I just like the way that our workflow has changed, and I think it's going to lead to better content down the road.
Yeah. Or you could just say that your favorite episode that you've recorded is the one you're recording now. So
here we go. This
right.
is the one.
This
cheers
is our favorite.
To that.
This is our favorite one right here. So
yeah.
Oh, we're doing a cheers. Okay. Cheers.
Cheers. And don't
cheers
forget
to the podcast.
Punch fear in the face.
Yes, punch fear in the face and press record. Sean Cannell of Think Media. We watched.
Shout out to you, Sean Cannell.
We watched
if
some
you're
of his
listening.
content, so we're just gonna even when you don't feel prepared, you just have to do it, because if you don't do it, then you'll never fail, and you'll never get better, and you'll never accomplish the things that you want to accomplish in life. So sometimes you just have to do it, even though you don't feel like you can, and you'll just get better over time. So.
And that's why I'm thankful for you, Tyler, because you like push the podcast forward. Like if it was me, I would still be back at like episode 2. Like, oh, I got to prepare the perfect content. And like, you're like, nope, we're just going to record and we're going to see what happens. And, but now that we've done it for over, 20 episodes, like we've got a little bit of a pattern down, and I think another 20 episodes and we'll be doing well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so speaking of future episodes and what we're planning to do in the next year, so we're going to just chat a little bit about just what we're going to plan to do in the next year. So we have a bunch of the months mapped out already, and so I'll just do a quick rundown of all the books that we're planning to do and how we're going to break them all up. So in January, we have a new book type that we're going to be doing, which is a manga. And so we're going to be doing Vinland Saga, which I have right here in my hand. And as you can see, we have already read this, and we've actually already recorded both episodes for these. So we have Vinland Saga volumes 1 and 2, and those will both go up in January. And then we have, let's see what we got here. We're going to be finishing the Powder Mage trilogy with the Autumn Republic, and that's going to be in February. So I'm looking forward to starting this book. I have not started yet, but Gabe, you said you've started it. So we're going to be shortly getting to that as we record that in January. And then...
But I'm only going to read the first half.
Right.
And again, like I said, my memory is bad, so like I don't remember. I remember some key points at the end of this book, but still, the journey is going to be fun to re-explore.
Yes, and you can listen at like 5 times speed and like super read. Maybe not that fast, but
yeah, I do 3 if it's the day of the podcast and I've already listened to it at like a 1.5. I've slowed down to 1.5 or 1.25. But if I'm like scanning the book for a specific part, I can turn it up to 3. I have to literally like close my eyes, focus on the words, and I can only do it for like a minute, like maybe like 5 minutes, which will end up being 15 minutes of content, but it's just like, it goes so fast. I'm like, I can still hear it. I can still process it because I've already read it, and we're just scanning for a certain part or trying to remember some stuff.
Yeah. Cool. And so that's February. And then in March, we're going to go back to Vinland Saga, and we're going to do volumes 3 and 4, which will be book 2 for the hardcover edition, if you have those. So yeah, looking forward to continuing in Vinland Saga, as we've already read this book. So there's some, this is a really great first entry into this kind of universe. So definitely stay tuned for those episodes in January, and the further ones that are going to be in March for volumes 3 and 4. And then in April, we get to go back to the Wheel of Time. We're going to do book 4, The Shadow Rising, which this is a meaty book. This is like, looking at this paperback here with the that's a prologue, glossary. What do we got here? 917 pages. So that means we're going to be splitting this book up into 3 parts instead of just our normal 2, because I feel like it's going to be a lot to discuss 500 pages at a time, whenever things like the Autumn Republic is about 600 pages. Yeah, about 600 pages. So yeah, splitting that up into 3 parts is going to be much better. So we'll probably do about 350 pages each episode, I guess. Is that how the math works out to? Just about around 300 pages ish per episode. So I'm not sure where we're going to break that up just yet, since I've never read this book, so I don't really know where a good place to break it up is.
And I don't even remember this book at all.
Yeah. But apparently this is one of the best books in the series, so I'm looking forward to it. And it's been a while since we got back into Wheel of Time, so I'm definitely looking forward to getting back into it.
Yeah, I think that'll be good.
Yes. And then, so that's going to be April. And then in May, we're going to go back to Vinland Saga with book 3, aka volumes 5 and 6. So, yeah, that's going to be good. And then in June, we're going to switch it up and go back to some sci-fi, because in the intro, I always say, your destination for discussions of popular fantasy and science fiction novels. But we don't really read that much science fiction, so we're going to go back to science fiction, and we're going to be doing the sequel to Ender's Game, which is The Speaker for the Dead. And this is a book that's been on my shelf for quite a long time, and I've intended to read it for a long time, but just, never got around to doing it. So it's finally on the schedule, and I'm going to read it. And yeah, I've heard that this is the book that Orson Scott Card wanted to write, but he felt like he had to write something else before it as like a prologue to this story. And so Ender's Game is almost like the prologue to Speaker for the Dead. So yeah, I'm super interested to read this, and I've heard this one is much more philosophical and much less action heavy than Ender's Game. So it'll be a different pace for sure. But yeah, looking forward to it. Have you read this book before? No. Did you?
No,
read
it? I just bought. I have not read it, and I just bought it on Audible just like moments ago. As you were holding it up, I was like, I'll just get that book in my library right now. I have some credits available. I have that monthly subscription, so sometimes I'll go a few months without getting a book, so I'll have a few, and that's good. Sometimes, like, I'll go on a binge. I'll be like, oh, I'm really into this series, and I'll get like 3 books in a row. Right.
Yeah, I think I have 2 credits right now, so I don't know what I should. I don't really listen to audiobooks that much, so sometimes it's kind of like I don't know what I should get, because if I want to get them in paperback, is it like wasting to get it on audiobook? So it's kind of a weird conundrum I have. So yes. So anyways,
I just commute so much that it's just worth it.
Yeah, I totally get it for you, for sure. My problem is, like, if I try to listen at work, like sometimes like I'll get interrupted a lot, or like I'm trying to do something while I'm listening, and so I'm not paying attention to the book, and so like I miss things, and yeah, I just feel like it's harder for me to find time to do the audiobook thing. But if I had a longer commute, I would definitely make more use of it, I feel like. Yes, so that's going to be in June, so we're already halfway through the year at this point. And then in July, we're going to be doing a new book. So this book is actually coming out in May, at the end of May. And I thought we could do it in June, but I think it's too quick of a turnaround between the book coming out and then having time to record, because we record kind of in advance of when these episodes release. So I think in July we can probably do this, and it's a book called The Will of the Many, which is by James Islington, who actually wrote the Lycanius trilogy. If you see that series up there with the red, blue, and orange, that was his debut fantasy series. And while it's not like a perfect series, it is very interesting, and it has some cool concepts in it. And yeah, he's inspired a lot by Brandon Sanderson's works. So of course I love Brandon Sanderson, and yeah, it was just good to read that series. And this is his new series that he's been working on, so I'm hoping that it's going to be a lot better than his first series, because he's had a lot of time to kind of, work out the kinks in his writing and make it the best that it could be. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'll put up an image of the book cover. It's got some like Roman kind of esque themes, and that uses this magic system called the will, and it's like this embodiment of like different aspects of your person. And you can I was talking about this with Gabe. You can take your will and you can like give it to other people. So it's kind of a similar magic system to Breath in Warbreaker from Brandon Sanderson. If you want to listen to those podcasts, I'll put links in the description, which was actually our first podcasts that we did on this show. So if you want to go back and listen to our first episodes, actually, I don't even really want to go back and listen to the first episodes, because they might be really might be cringe to go back and listen to them, but
yeah, it might be. But yeah, I mean, still, Warbreaker was really good.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, so
it just kind of all came together like after the first 500 pages, but
yes, that's right.
But that's how Brandon Sanderson rolls. He's like, you got to know everything before I give you the
Sanderlanche.
The Sanderlanche. That's right.
Yep. Yeah, so we're going to be doing that, and I'm really looking forward to that book. So hopefully it's good, but we will see. And then in August, we're going to go back to Vinland Saga with book 4, which would be volumes 7 and 8. And that is where that's where we've ended our planning so far. So we still have open September, October, November, and December. I think in October, we definitely need to do something kind of like horror related, or maybe some Stephen King. I know Gabe has read some Stephen King, so maybe he'll give us a good recommendations of where we could jump into his works. Or maybe we'll read some Frankenstein, because that's a pretty short book. We could do maybe a one-off on that. So I'm not sure what all we're going to be doing, but October is going to be some kind of horror or spooky kind of month with books related to that. But for the other 3 months, it's still kind of up in the air. So if you have suggestions of what you think we should read towards the end of the year, you can let us know that in the comments. Do you have any general thoughts on 2023 plans and all the books we're going to be doing? Is there a book you're particularly looking forward to getting to?
Let me look at the list here. I think The Shadow Rising is going to be good. I'm looking forward to that. It'll be fun to see, I seriously I put the book on, but there's a point when you binge stuff where you are watching it or listening to it, but you're not fully engaged. And I really have no recollection of what's inside of this book. So I'm interested to see. I like the Wheel of Time story, and it's nice to do this podcast because it's solidifying my memory more and more on it. So I'm looking forward to The Shadow Rising. And then, we do have the first part of the year booked out, and, that's partially because, we are looking forward to 2023 being the birth of our second child, and Tyler and I want to remain consistent to our listeners, so we're trying to have a plan so that I can go on paternity leave from the podcast, yet still have content available to you guys. So that's why we have so much planned out. I told Tyler when we started this, it might be nice to just have a few months planned out to leave some wiggle room for this book just came out and stuff. Yep. And I think we're going to get back to that at the end of this year. But it's good to know that we have a plan for everything coming up. And then there's just some, I just had the thought, we kind of maybe need to dip into some classics, like some Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451, or Brave New World by, I think it's Huxley.
Yep.
And then there's I've never read Isaac Asimov, but he's
I'd love to read him.
And big name in sci-fi, and I am a big Stephen King fan. I am a horror fan. I like my horror podcast, Scared to Death podcast, so I'm looking forward to the October choice. And then what's the other one who does the cosmic horror? Lovecraft.
Yes.
He's so I'm looking forward to exploring some new authors. I like our lineup that we have for the beginning of the year, but I also think that as we hit the later half of the year, I think we should start exploring some new ones. And and I think the classics would be good to do, just because that's where a lot of these ideas arise from, are the classics that people really know and understand. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good year. You can let us know if you have any book suggestions that you'd like to get, for us to get to towards the end of the year there, and even if you have suggestions for 2024. Hopefully the podcast will be continuing to go in 2024. Yeah. We don't have any. I don't have any plans to stop it. So, yeah.
Yep. Neither do I at this point. So I think we're good.
Cool. Yeah, so that's going to be our 2023 plans. To just end kind of the podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about like 2023, like personal goals, like just anything that you personally want to accomplish in this next year. Something for me particularly is just to focus on my health a little bit more. So what I wrote down is work out 4 times a week. So I don't know if that's going to be feasible. But yeah, I think that's a good goal to have. So you work out like every weekday, and then you have 1 day of rest in there, and then you have the weekend off. So I'd like to do some more like weightlifting. So I'm doing my wife and I subscribe to Beachbody On Demand, that service, so we can do our workouts at home.
I've been donating for about a year. I need to get back into
That's
it.
right. You're donating to the cause. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to be doing Lift 4. That's the program that I want to try and do. I have done it in the past, and I did T20 for a while, which is what Gabe really likes. He goes crazy about
Transform 20.
That's right,
with Sean T.
That's right. So yeah, there's a lot of great programs on there, and but again, yeah, making actual use of them, because I've been a donator for a few months here this past year. But yeah, definitely getting back to focus on my health would be good. And something else more professionally that I want to focus on is just creating more content for this channel. I feel like I've just kind of been focused on the podcast, and then with everything else in life going on, like not really having the time to focus on making other types of content or other types of videos. So I really would like to try to put out new videos that are not just the podcast and have other stuff that's going on, whether that's reviews or just deep dives into different aspects of books that we've done in the podcast, maybe revisiting a specific scene or something and really going deep into something that we enjoy talking about in the podcast and just focusing on that. There could be a ton of different ideas that I've had written down that I could go into. So yeah, just something that's not related to the podcast, some other kind of content. And then the last thing is I'd love to start potentially doing like a newsletter, like a monthly email or something like that. I've been trying to do a little bit of writing, and I've had this idea for a series called Every Chapter Analyzed, where I take one chapter of a book, like a fantasy book or something like that, and I just analyze it from a Christian perspective. So right now I've been working on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, and just looking at the chapters in that book and just looking at like what are the decisions that the characters make, like how does that align with the biblical perspective. Is there C.S. Lewis is notorious for allegory, so where are the allegories in the story? What is the author trying to portray and tell us about his worldview or something like that? So thinking about starting that, and I'd like to get a few things written before I actually launch it, so I have some buffer and some room to grow with that. But yeah, those are some things that I've been meaning to start for a long time, but probably should just take the plunge. Like we said before with the Sean Cannell comment, you just got to punch fear in the face and press record, or in this case type on your keyboard whichever you're going to write. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you have some good goals there, and I've kind of like looked at yours and they kind of influenced mine, so I'm gonna try and take off of yours, but also have some of my own.
Sure.
Because I did have this thought that I want to set up a home gym. I don't know. I was very consistent in our last home, and then like I had knee surgery and I just fell out of it. One of the things, like, how I said, like, I can do things, like, very rigorously, and, like, I was very good with working out for about a year. Like, I think I worked out 6 times a week for a year doing Transform 20 with Sean T. And he's like, you got to change your mindset. I don't have to work out. I get to work out. And just, like, those little nuggets of truth that he lays on you. It's so good. So yeah, I want to get my home gym set up. It'll just be nice to have a space for the mat, set up a little TV so I can work out in the house. That worked for me in the past. I feel like it will work for me in the future. I just need to find time to set up the space. I want to get some mats and lay it down, because the spot in my house that I'm looking to convert into the gym is just hard tile, and considering high impact, is what got me to the knee surgery. I need to put some pads down and everything. So that's on my to-do list. Also, just to help my wife through the pregnancy, make sure that she's got all of her needs taken care of. Life is going to change when we have our second child, and just I'm walking through there. I think I'm going to talk a little bit professionally. So I do have aspirations to be a YouTuber like Tyler. I do not have a working YouTube channel currently, but I'm currently planning 3 YouTube channels, which I don't think I will launch. Big
dreams over here. Here we go.
And listen, I just can't contain it all to one. So here, I'll give you guys the rundown of the 3. Okay, so we have Neighborhood Nerd Services, which is your place for technology support. Mainly, I'm going to talk about probably 3D printing, but I'll talk about like how I organize spreadsheets, or how I set up smart lighting, kind of all these different skills that I've built working with technology. I'll probably make the most content on 3D printing because that's what I enjoy and that's my current like passion there. And then I have Neighborhood Nerd University, which is going to be my educational version of Neighborhood Nerd Services. So I'm an educator and a teacher, and I go to lots of like conferences and stuff, and I want to kind of document my path through being a tech ed teacher for my school. I want to, get Minecraft EDU lessons up, like explain how I work with my students on Minecraft, explain how I use 3D printing as a token economy in my classroom, just to give people some ideas, and talk about different concepts that I've encountered in professional development and how I would implement them in the classroom. And then the third channel, which is most in line with Pages of Light, would be, I'm still working on the name of the channel, but I think the last iteration, and I don't know if I go with this, is the Quarantine Quartermaster and the Boss versus Time Debt, I think was the name of the channel. That might be a little bit too long to say, so I'll have to work on that.
You can have a long channel name and just abbreviate when you say it.
And so that is going to be about my walk with Christ. I like Mike Winger. I've been listening to him a lot recently, and I'd like to pursue, like, he has an app called Bible Thinker, or like Biblical Thinker, and just how he tries to walk through life and just think about everything biblically. Like, I feel like I have a lot to learn from him, and just like some ideas that I have, like a quartermaster is a person who knows like their inventory, they keep lists, and they know. And I feel like I'm a wasteful person. Like I have things, but I don't know where they are, and like it ends up leading to both time and financial waste. And like sometimes I buy things without vetting them, and like, so I know that I've messed up. And I feel like the Quarantine Quartermaster is a person who's organized and like knows where things are, and I think that's biblical to like understand like your household and like understand your budget and how to plan accordingly. And so the third channel would be like my walkthrough, like trying to be a better Christian and using scripture to build my foundation on the rock. So those are the 3 channels that I do not think I will be working on in 2023, because I want to focus in on my personal business. I really would like to start selling. The only model that I currently am able to sell are dragons, so I'm thinking about printing a bunch of 3D printed dragons and selling them. I sold a bunch with my students at school, and they sell. So they at least sold at like the one, I think it was called the Handmade Arcade here in PA. We sold a bunch of dragons, and we made a pretty, like, we made over $500, which was great. So I feel like I now have a good printer that I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I gotta go work on it. I didn't want it to be down, but I tried printing with PETG and I don't know, some filaments caught in there, so I got to disassemble it. And they want you to take a lighter to the Allen key and stick it down in the nozzle, so I'll be doing that maybe tonight. It's getting really late though, so I don't know. And then it's gonna be down. If I don't do it tonight, it's gonna be down for the weekend, and that's gonna be like 3 days of printing I'm gonna be out of. Be like, grr.
Time is money.
And I have plans. I'm 3D printing gifts for Christmas, which is just around the corner. Even though you guys are listening to this after Christmas, I have like 2 more dragons to print, and I need to do that before Christmas time. So maybe I'll take my filament in with me, and then print some stuff at work while this one's down, because I don't know how long it's going to take to get this one back up and running. So I'd like to work on my business and see if I can sell some 3D printed stuff. And I eventually want to open some summer camps on like how to be a 3D printer if you're like in middle school or like in high school. Cool. 'Cause, I think that parents in this area would pay for that, and it's something that's like I'm good at, and then eventually like branch that out into like teach your middle schooler how to code, like come to my camp and put on by Neighborhood Nerd Services. I think those would be good summer money makers, and since I'm an educator, like I'll have the time to like we can put together a week-long camp and do this together sort of thing. So those are kind of like the long-term plans. Again, that might not materialize for 2 or 3 years while I build content, become a dad, have 5 pets, hold down a full-time job, run a business, record a podcast.
What are you talking about? You have so much free time, it's ridiculous. I don't even know what you're talking about here.
So many obligations, but you know what, Tyler, I have fun on this podcast, and I like doing it with you. So I like it. So,
cool. Well, we're happy that you're here. So
yeah. So those are my non-planned plans. So you guys know those are my non-planned plans.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And if you guys like, you can put if you have any goals for the new year, we won't call them New Year's resolutions, but things that you maybe want to accomplish over the course of the year, or things that you want to do better at, let us know down in the comments, and we can all help each other to do better and keep each other accountable. Maybe Gabe and I can keep each other accountable and working out. We'll see what happens there. Good. So maybe we'll do like we did like a 6-month check-in like in the middle of 2023. We'll do like another informal type podcast like we did for this one, and for whenever we returned after our hiatus. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. It's just kind of more of a chill episode, just talking about what we're going to be doing in the 2023 and the things that we enjoyed from this current year. So we hope that you guys all had a great 2022, and we hope that 2023 will be even better. So as always, you can follow Pages of Light at our website, pagesoflight.com, and you can check us out on social media. On all of those platforms, go over and subscribe on the YouTube channel so you can check out the video version and all of the other video content that I have up there. And leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars if you can, and let us know why you like the podcast. I think you can also leave reviews on Spotify, so leave one over there as well. And that is going to do it. That is 2022 in the books. This is the last podcast of the year. So thank you guys for listening to us or watching us during this year. And it's been great to do this podcast, and I've really enjoyed doing it with you, Gabe, and having all of you guys participate as well in the podcast. So thanks for a great year. And as always, remember to keep reading and to share the gospel with somebody this week. And we will see you in the next episode in 2023.